Hi guys, I'm so sad that I don't get to read this with you in class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and read the ending of Flowers for Algernon for you, and then that way you'll have it read out loud as well as I've attached the whole story to all the documents. Okay, so where we stopped off last was when Charlie had realized he had feelings for Miss Algernon, and we were like, is it love? Is it not love? And it was just his new feelings that were coming out, right? Okay, and then he was presented with Algernon at the convention, which didn't go so. Remember when we watched the video, and he was really upset about what happened, and so that's kind of right where we've stopped, where his intelligence has reached that 204 level. Okay, so we're starting on May 20th, and it says, I would not have noticed the new dishwasher, a boy of about 16 at the corner diner where I take my evening meals, if not for the incident of the broken dishes. They crashed to the floor, shattering and sending bits of white china under the tables. The boy stood there, dazed and frightened, holding the empty tray in his hand. The whistles and catcalls from the customers, the cries of, hey, there go the prophets, and Mazel Tov, and, well, he didn't work here very long, which invariably seemed to follow the breaking of glass or dishware in a public restaurant, all seemed to confuse him. When the owner came to see what the excitement was about, the boy cowered as if expected to be struck and threw up his arms as if to ward off a blow. All right, you dope, shouted the owner. Just don't stand there. Get the broom and sweep that mess up. A broom, you idiot. It's in the kitchen. Sweep up all those pieces. The boy saw that he was not going to be punished. His frightened expression disappeared, and he smiled and hummed as he came back with the broom to sweep the floor. A few of the rowdier customers kept up their remarks, amusing themselves at his expense. Here, Sonny, over here. Here's a nice piece behind you. Come on, do it again. Oh, he's not so dumb. It's easier to break 'em than wash 'em. As his vacant eyes moved across the crowd of amused onlookers, he slowly mirrored their smiles and finally broke into an uncertain grin at the joke which he obviously did not understand. Guys, does that sound familiar? Think of Charlie at the very beginning, and when the jokes, he didn't understand. He had that vacant look in his eye, right? Think how that's mirroring the way Charlie used to be. Okay. I felt sick inside as I looked at his dull, vacant smile, the wide, bright eyes of a child, uncertain but eager to please. They were laughing at him because he was mentally retarded, and I had been laughing at him too. Suddenly, I was furious at myself and all those who were smirking at him. I jumped up and shouted, Shut up and leave him alone. It's not his fault. He can't understand. He can't help what he is. But for God's sake, he's still a human being. The room grew silent. I cursed myself for losing control and creating a scene. I tried not to look at the boy as I paid my check and walked out without touching my food. I felt ashamed for both of us. So Charlie was ashamed because of what all the customers were doing to that boy. And then on the other hand, what was he ashamed of? He was ashamed because he was laughing like all the other people before it clicked. He used to be like that, right? Okay. I'd hidden the picture of old Charlie Gordon from myself because now that I was intelligent, it wasn't something that had to be pushed out of my mind. But today, in looking at that boy, for the first time I saw what I had been, and I was just like he was. Only a short time ago, I learned that people had laughed at me. Now I can see that unknowingly I joined with them in laughing at myself, and that hurts most of all. Remember, he found out the second time he went to the bar with Joe and Frank, right? I have often reread my progress reports and seen the illiteracy, the childish naivety, the mind of low intelligence peering from a dark room through the keyhole at the dazzling light outside. I see that even in my dullness, I knew that I was inferior and other people had something I lacked, something denied me. In my mental blindness, I thought that it was somehow connected to the ability to read and write, and I was sure that if I could get those skills, I would automatically have intelligence too. So that's telling us Charlie thinks intelligence means you can read good and you can write good. That's what the old Charlie used to think. But we know different, right? Remember how we're learning knowledge and intelligence. Knowledge is what you have. Intelligence is how you use that knowledge. So that's what Charlie is coming to learn, even though he's at that point of being a genius at 204, right? Okay. Even a feeble-minded man wants to be like other men. A child may not know how to feed itself or what to eat, yet it knows of hunger. This then is what I was like, and I never knew it. Even with my gift of intellectual awareness, I never really knew. This day was good for me, seeing the past more clearly. I had decided to use my knowledge and skills to work in the field of increasing human intelligence levels. Who is better equipped for this work? Who else has lived in both worlds? These are my people. Let me use my gift to do something for them. Tomorrow I will discuss with Dr. Strauss the manner in which I can work in this area. I may be able to help him work out the problems of this widespread use of the technique. I have several good ideas of my own. There is so much that might be done with this technique. If I could be made into a genius, what about thousands of others like myself? What geniuses we could become. There are so many doors to open. I am impatient to begin. Remember at the beginning, Charlie's motivation was that all his life he wanted to be smart and not dumb. And his motivation was to learn to read and write, and he tried the hardest in Miss Kenion's class, right? So now what is his motivation? His motivation is when he saw that boy in the restaurant, and it used to be just like him, now he's going to talk to the doctors, and he's going to say, hey, look, maybe I can help you, and we can use this surgery on other people to help them. So now his motivation is to help others like him to get to where he's at this genius level. So he's going to start researching to see what's happening, right? So let's see where that kind of takes him, okay? Says, so this is Progress Report 13, May 23rd. It happened today. Algernon bit me. I visited to the lab to see him as I do occasionally, and when I took him out of his cage, he snapped at my hand. I put him back and watched him for a while. He was unusually disturbed and vicious. Notice anything different, right? Charlie and Algernon was never like that before. Charlie didn't race him anymore because he was too smart, but Algernon was never vicious. He never bit him. He was always kind of like gentle and sweet. This is a change in Algernon, so kind of watch for anything else comes up, right? So this is May 24th. Bert, who is in charge of the experimental animals, tells me that Algernon is changing. He is less cooperative. He refuses to run the maze anymore. General motivation has decreased, and he hasn't been eating. Everyone is upset about what this may mean. So just think for a second. Algernon was an animal that had the same test as Charlie, right? Algernon was smart like Charlie. But now all of a sudden, think about what this means. Algernon is less cooperative, motivation. He doesn't want to do anything. He bit Charlie. Say, what does that mean might be happening to Algernon, right? Keep that in your mind, okay? Says so May 25th, so this is 2 days after he bit him. Says they've been feeding Algernon, who now refuses to work the shifting lock problem. Everyone identifies me with Algernon. In a way, we're both the first of our kind. They're all pretending that Algernon's behavior is not necessarily significant for me, but it's hard to hide the fact that some of the other animals who were used in this experiment are showing strange behavior. Dr. Strauss and Dr. Niemer have asked me not to come to the lab anymore. I know what they're thinking, but I can't accept it. I am going ahead with my plans to carry their research forward. With all due respect to both of these fine scientists, I am well aware of their limitations. If there is an answer, I'll have to find it out for myself. Suddenly, time has become very important to me. Why do you think time has become important to Charlie? Think about it for a second. Algernon had the same surgery. Charlie had the same surgery. So if they're the same, if Algernon's changing, what could possibly happen to Charlie, right? So is time very, very important to his research because changes are coming. Remember that whole writing that we're doing. Has this surgery improved his life or worsened it? That essay that we were talking about working on, right? So here we go. May 29th. I have been given a lab of my own and permission to go ahead with the research. I'm onto something. I work day and night. I've had a cot moved into the lab, and most of my writing time is spent on the notes, which I keep in a separate folder. But from time to time, I feel it necessary to put down my moods and thoughts. I find the calculus of intelligence to be a fascinating study. May 31st. Dr. Strauss thinks I'm working too hard. Dr. Niemer says I'm trying to cram a lifetime of research and thought into a few weeks. I know I should rest, but I'm driven on by something inside that won't let me stop. I've got to find the reason for the sharp regression in Algernon. I've got to know if and when it will happen to me. So that's a new term, regression. Regression means going back to the way things used to be. So if Charlie used to have an IQ of 68 and couldn't read, couldn't write very well, didn't understand the world around him, regression means you go back. So that's what's happened to Algernon. So Charlie is doing this research to see if it's going to happen to him, and if it does, when is it going to happen to him. So now that's why time is so important to Charlie, to see if it's going to actually happen to him, and regression, right? Okay. June 4th, this is a letter to Dr. Strauss. It says, Dear Dr. Strauss, under separate cover, I am sending you a copy of my report entitled The Algernon-Gordon Effect, a study of structure and function of the increased intelligence, which I would like to have you read and have published. As you see, my experiments are completed. I have included in my report all of my formulas, as well as my mathematical analysis in the appendix. Of course, these should be verified. Because of its importance to both you and Dr. Niemer, and need I say to myself too, I have checked and rechecked my results a dozen times in the hope of finding an error. I am sorry to say the results must stand, yet for the sake of science, I am grateful for the little bit that I here add to the knowledge of the function of the human mind and of the laws governing the artificial increase of human intelligence. I recall you once saying to me that the experimental failure or the disproving of a story was as important to the advancement of learning as successes would be. I know now that this is true. I am sorry, however, that my own contribution to the field must rest upon the ashes of the work of two men I regard so highly. So, kind of confusing. Basically, Charlie is saying that he's done all the research. He went past the two doctors' research and experiment, and he's come to a conclusion. It's basically what he's talked about. Okay? So, June 5th, I must not become emotional. The facts and the results of my experiment are clear, and the more sensational aspects of my own rapid climb cannot obscure the fact that the tripling of intelligence by surgical techniques developed by Strauss and Niemer must be viewed as having little or no practicality applicability to increase human intelligence. As I review the records and data on Algernon, I see that although he is still in his physical infancy, he has regressed mentally. Keep that in mind. Motor activity is impaired. There is a general reduction of glandular activity, and there is acute loss of coordination. There are also strong indications of progressed amnesia. As will be seen by my reports, these and other physical and mental deterioration symptoms can be predicted with statistically significant results by the application of my formula. That's what he came up with in his research, right? The surgical stimulus to which we were both subjected has resulted in an intensification and acceleration of all mental processes. So remember, Charlie got extremely smart within like 30 to 40 days, 45 days. He tripled his intelligence. That was a rapid increase in his intelligence from this surgery, right? Okay. The unforeseen development, which I have taken the liberty of calling the Algernon-Gordon effect, is the logical extension of the entire intelligence speedup. The hypothesis here, remember, hypothesis is like science, guys, right? So hypothesis is when you have a problem, it's a guess. I think this is what's going to happen if I do this experiment or this process, right? So the hypothesis here proven may be described simply in the following terms. Artificially increased intelligence deteriorates at a rate of time directly proportional to the quantity of the increase. I feel that this in itself is an important discovery. As long as I am able to write, I will continue to record my thoughts in these progress reports. It is one of my few pleasures. However, by all indications, my own mental deterioration will be very rapid. I have already begun to notice signs of emotional instability and forgetfulness, the first symptoms of the burnout. So, basically that last line. So if it took Charlie 45 days to go from IQ of 68 on this side, in 45 days he became IQ of 204, a genius, that means this experiment that he did using Algernon and everything that happened means that it's going to take 45 days for Charlie to go from a 204 intelligence all the way back to being an IQ of 68, mental illness, dumb, right? Remember how we say dumb? Okay. So you have to think to yourself, was this surgery good or bad? Was it kind of the same like on that fence? Remember how we talked about on the fence, right? So let's see. He's already noticed some things have been happening to him. So when I kind of finish reading this, start seeing if you can notice some things that's going on with him, right? Okay. June 10th. So when I look back at all the dates from the time in the restaurant to now, it's almost been a month. So he's researched everything for just about a month. And it's been about a month since Algernon bit him, right? And he started noticing some changes. So 30 days, roughly, because here's what's happened. June 10th, deterioration progressing, meaning it's going down. I have become absent-minded. Algernon died 2 days ago. Think about that. Dissection shows my predictions were right. His brain had decreased in weight, and there was a general smoothing out of cerebral convolutions, as well as a deepening and broadening of brain fissures. I guess the same thing is or will soon be happening to me. Now that it's definite, I don't want it to happen. I put Algernon's body in a cheese box and buried him in the backyard. And I cried. Think about that. Algernon was almost his best friend, right? Okay, when he was kind of dumb Charlie, because he became friends with him. He's noticed the regression is going to happen, and what has happened to Algernon? Algernon has died. So what can we infer? Infer means we take all of our information we know and make that educated guess. So what do we think might happen to Charlie? That's what he's talking about right here. I don't want it to happen. Okay? I cried. He cried for Algernon dying, and he cried for himself, right? Because of what's going to eventually happen to him. Okay? June 15th. Dr. Strauss came to see me again. I wouldn't open the door, and I told him to go away. I want to be left by myself. I have become touchy and irritable. I feel the darkness closing in. It's hard to throw off thoughts of suicide. I keep telling myself how important this introspective journal will be. It's a strange sensation to pick up a book that you've read and enjoyed just a few months ago and discover that you don't remember it. I remembered how great I thought John Milton was, but when I picked up Paradise Lost, I couldn't understand it. I've got to try to hold on to some of it, some of the things I've learned. Oh God, please don't take all of it away. Why can't I remember? Sometimes I go for a walk and I don't know where I'm at. Last night I couldn't remember where I lived and a policeman had to take me home. I keep telling myself I'm the only person in the world who can describe what's happening to me, but I've got to fight. I lie in bed for days and I don't know who or where I am. Remember, that's amnesia. Remember, Algernon had amnesia, right? Then it all comes back to me in flashes. Symptoms of senility, second childhood. I can watch them coming. It's so cruelly logical. I learned so much and so fast. Now my mind is deteriorating rapidly. I won't let it happen. I'm going to fight it. I can't help thinking of the boy in the restaurant, the blank expression, the silly smile, the people laughing at him. No, please, not that again. Charlie is scared, guys, of going back to the way he used to be because he has had a glimpse of intelligence and what this real world looks like. Remember, he had it wasn't love. Remember, he had a glimpse of Miss Kenyon and that infatuation, that crush. Remember, we laughed about it? So he's understood that. He's understood what friends are and what friends aren't. Studying, learning, he doesn't want to lose any of that. He's scared, right? I'm forgetting things that I learned recently. It seems to be following the classic pattern. The last things learned are the first things forgotten. Or is that a pattern? I better look it up again. My motor activity is impaired. I keep tripping over things and it becomes increasingly difficult to type. June 23rd. I've given up using the typewriter completely. My coordination is bad. I feel that I'm moving slower and slower. Had a terrible shock today. I picked up a copy of an article I used in my research and I could not understand it. Then I realized I could no longer read German. I tested myself in other languages, and they're all gone. Remember, he learned all those foreign languages? Now he doesn't have any of that knowledge anymore. A week since I dared to write again. It's slipping away like sand through my fingers. Most of the books I have are too hard for me now, and I get angry with them because I know I read them and understood them just a few weeks. That's how fast this is going. He's losing all of it. Dr. Strauss comes around almost every day, but I told him I wouldn't speak or see anybody. He feels guilty, and they all do. But I don't blame anyone. I knew what might happen, but how it hurts to know what's occurring. I don't know where the week went. Today's Sunday, I know, because I can see through my window people going to church. I think I stayed in bed all week, but I remember Miss Flynn bringing me food a few times. I keep saying over and over, I've got to do something, but then I forgot, or maybe it's just easier not to do what I say I'm going to do at all. And if you pick up this copy, because I gave you a copy of the whole story, this is July 7th, he is starting to have spelling mistakes. He's forgetting punctuation. Some words are starting to be spelled incorrectly. So it's going back to that childlike spelling and grammar. Okay. July 10th. My landlady, Mrs. Flynn, is very worried about me. She says the way I lay around all day and don't do anything, I remind her of her son before she threw him out. She said she doesn't like loafers. If I'm sick, it's one thing, but if I'm a loafer, it's another. I told her I think I'm sick. Okay. I try to read a little bit every day, mostly stories, but sometimes I have to read the same thing over and over and over again because I don't know what it means, and it's hard to write. I know I should look up all the words in the dictionary, but it's so hard, and I'm tired all the time. Then I got the idea that I would only use the easy words instead of the hard ones. That saves time. I put flowers on Algernon's grave about once a week. Miss Flynn thinks I'm crazy to put flowers on a mouse grave, but I told her that Algernon was special. Now, as I start to read, think how his sentences are sounding. Remember at the beginning, it was kind of hard to read because of his spelling and his grammar. His sentences were very short. It was that childlike mind and thinking. So that's what's starting to happen now with Charlie. Okay. Mrs. Flynn called a strange doctor to see me. She was afraid I was going to die. I told the doctor I wasn't sick and that I only forgot sometimes. He asked me, did I have friends or relatives? And I said, no, I don't have anyone. I told him I had a friend called Algernon once, but he was a mouse and we used to run races together. He looked at me kind of funny, like he thought I was crazy. He smiled when I told him I used to be a genius. He talked to me like I was a baby and winked at Miss Flynn. I got mad and chased him out because he was making fun of me the way they all used to do. I have no more money, and Miss Flynn says I've got to go to work somewhere and pay the rent because I haven't paid for 2 months. Remember when he was intelligence, how the laboratory started paying him each month to come in and to work, but now he doesn't have that intelligence, so he has no income. And remember, he got fired when that petition with all those 400 or 800 something names, right? Okay. Okay. I don't know any work but the job I used to have at Donegan's Plastic Box Company. I don't want to go back there because they all knew me when I was smart, and maybe they'll laugh at me. I don't know what to do to get money. I was looking at some of my old progress reports, and it's very funny, but I can't read what I wrote. I can make out some of the words, but they don't make sense. Miss Kenyon came to the door, but I said, go away, I don't want to see you. She cried and cried, but I wouldn't let her in because I didn't want her to laugh at me. I told her I didn't like her anymore. I told her I didn't want to be smart anymore. But that's not true. I still love her, and I still want to be smart, but I had to say that so she'd go away. She gave Miss Flynn money to pay the rent. I don't want that. I got to get a job. Please, please let me not forget how to read and write. Mr. Donegan was very nice when I came back and asked for my old job of janitor. First, he was very suspicious, but I told him what happened to me. Then he looked very sad and put his hand on my shoulder and said, Charlie Gordon, you got guts. Now, we haven't seen Joe and Frank in quite a while, right? The last time we saw him was the second bar episode. And then if you remember, 5 days after that, Charlie is such a good guy that he forgave Joe and Frank because he asked them out for lunch, but Joe and Frank said no, and that was the last time we heard. So Joe and Frank are fixing to come back in the picture now because now Charlie has his job back, okay? Everybody looked at me when I came downstairs and started working in the toilet, sweeping it out like I used to. I told myself, Charlie, if they make fun of you, don't get sore, because you remember they're not so smart as you once thought they were. And besides, they were once your friends, and then they laughed at you. That doesn't mean anything, because they liked you too. One of the new men who came to work there after I went away made a nasty crack. He said, "Hey, Charlie, I hear you're a very smart fella, a real quiz kid. Say something intelligent." I felt bad, but Joe Carp came over and grabbed him by the shirt and said, "Leave him alone, you lousy crack, or I'll break your neck." I didn't expect Joe to take my part, so I guess he really is my friend. Later, Frank Riley came over and said, "Charlie, if anybody bothers you or tries to take advantage, you call me and Joe and we'll set him straight." I said, "Thanks, Frank," and I got chucked up, so I had to turn around and go into the supply room so he wouldn't see me cry. It's good to have friends. What's happened to Joe and Frank? They stood up for Charlie because they now know what Charlie went through with the surgery to get smart. But they really haven't changed because they're still a bully, right? They're still bullying that other guy and kind of being mean to him. So they still have that bully in them, but they're actually standing up for Charlie now that they know what had happened to him, right? They're really my friends. That's what he's thinking. Okay, so here we go. This is the last progress report of the whole story. This is how the story completely ends. There's nothing after this progress report, okay? Excuse me. And I'm going to tell you in this story, it's one of those things that has kind of like a cliffhanger. You're really not sure. You're going to have to figure out what has happened. Last progress report, and this is the end of Flowers for Algernon. Okay, this is July 28th. I did a dumb thing today. I forgot I wasn't in Miss Kennyon's class at the adult center anymore like I used to be. I went in and sat down in my old seat in the back of the room, and she looked at me funny and she said, "Charles?" I don't remember she ever called me that before, only Charlie. So I said, "Hello, Miss Kenyon. I'm ready for my lesson today. Only I lost my reader that we was using." She started to cry and run out of the room, and everybody looked at me and saw that they wasn't the same people who used to be in my class. Then all of a sudden, I remembered some things about the operation and me getting smart, and I said, "Holy smoke, I really pulled a Charlie Gordon that time." I went away before she came back to the room. That's why I'm going away from New York for good. So that kind of tells us the setting. So this story took place in New York. So he says, "I'm going away from New York for good." So he's leaving New York. I don't want to do nothing like that again. I don't want Miss Kenyon to feel sorry for me. Everybody feels sorry at the factory, and I don't want that either. So I'm going someplace where nobody knows that Charlie Gordon once was a genius, and now he can't even read a book or write good. I'm taking a couple of books along, and even if I can't read them, I'll practice really hard, and maybe I won't forget everything that I learned. If I try real hard, maybe, and with my lucky penny, maybe someone will help me, and I'll be like before the operation. If you ever read this, Miss Kenyon, don't be sorry for me. I'm glad I got a second chance to be smart, because I learned a lot of things that I never even knew were in this world, and I'm grateful that I saw it all for a little bit. I don't know why I'm dumb again, or what I did wrong. Maybe because I didn't try hard enough. But if I try and practice very hard, maybe I'll get a little smart and know what all the words are. I remember a little bit how nice I had a feeling with that blue book that has the torn cover when I read. That's why I'm going to keep trying to get smart so I can have that feeling again. It's a good feeling to know things and be smart. I wish I had it right now. If I did, I would sit down and read all the time. Goodbye, Miss Kenyon and Dr. Strauss and everybody. And P.S. Please tell Dr. Niemer not to be such a grouch when people laugh at him, and he would have more friends. It's easy to make friends if you let people laugh at you. I'm going to have lots of friends where I go. P.P.P.S. Please, if you get a chance, put some flowers on Algernon's grave in the backyard. So, Charlie left New York, right? You have to decide what's happened to Charlie in France. Did he die like Algernon? Did he just stay dumb? We're not quite sure. We're not quite sure yet. We're not quite sure yet of what's happened to Charlie, because that's the way that it ends. So think to yourself, did the surgery improve his life, or did it make it worse? Or is it somewhere in the middle where it can go either way, right? So I hope you guys listened and finished it. I'm going to post some more stuff the rest of this week. And I also gave you the story that you could go back and read and use it. I'm just sad that we can't do the couple of videos that went with it. So I miss you guys. I hope you enjoyed the end of the story. Love you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.